At the same time, here in Washington and across the world, the question is being asked, what about Ukraine? President Zelensky, being the chief person asking that question, put this up there on the screen. Zelensky is now asking to visit Israel, quote, in a show of solidarity. You might view it that way, Krystal. The other way to view it is, hey guys, please don't forget about me, and please don't let the Israel-Palestine conflict wipe my interests off the face of Americans, off the face of American legislators, probably more specifically, and the Biden administration. And that's pretty maybe uncharitable, but it is almost certainly the way that he and his administration are looking at it, because behind the scenes, Krystal, there's been multiple reports that the Ukrainians, and even those in Washington who still are, very much pro-Ukraine aid, are like, oh my God, like we may have to choose, especially because we have a limited amount of weapons. Now people are definitely, there's going to be way more of a bipartisan consensus to send weapons to Israel. But what are we going to do in terms of continuing to fund Ukraine? The White House and others have come up with a new strategy. Here's their strategy. It's kind of a make sure you got to catch them all type thing. Let's put it up there on the screen. They are now going to lump Ukraine, Taiwan, border funding, and Israel in kind of an all-in-one type category for Congress. Everybody gets their little pet issue. It's a little earmark strategy trying to support the overwhelming bipartisan consensus on Israel, then to try and get House Republican right-wing support on border security to get those who say that Ukraine is distracting from Taiwan and China's defense by putting in Taiwan funding and then shoehorning Ukraine into that. We'll talk a bit in a sec about the speakership and how that is well being received over there. But it does show you that this is a big problem for Ukraine. They were top of mind for every international relations, professional, for every national security person in the White House, for, frankly, for the media, and for the front pages of every newspaper in the country. That is not the case, and it is not likely to be the case now for some time to come, which is a big problem for them. That's what they relied on in order to continue their funding and in order to continue pressuring lawmakers to keep passing these extraordinary amounts of money for them.
The Ukraine flags are coming down, and the Israeli flags are going up. Right. And Zelensky is no fool. Not only is he, publicly showing his solidarity as a way of reminding, hey guys, I'm here and I still need your help. By the way, he made a surprise visit to NATO headquarters in Brussels, urging them to maintain their flow of weapons, even as they say that much of the West turns its attention to the brutal outbreak of violence in Israel. Top NATO officials sought to reassure him. But, he acknowledged, he said, of course, everybody's afraid that Western assistance could dwindle. And he also says, who knows how it will be? I think nobody knows with regards to whether the flow of weapons is going to continue. Now, on the other hand, I think while certainly media attention is going to shift away from the Ukraine-Russia war, and, the liberal sympathies are going to shift, and certainly the right is all in terms of Israel, given that you now have this funding approach on the table of, hey, let's tie it all together and get it through, I actually think their chance of getting the immediate aid, this next package through, has probably increased greatly, given both the speaker chaos and the fact that you have this new strategy, which I think is very likely to succeed.
I think you're probably right. I will say, though, this highlights what I have been trying to say about Ukraine from day one, is this is going to come at the expense in the future of something. And now we're in that something. For example, if you didn't know, Israel, we had a massive stockpile of ammunition in Israel, both to be able to dispense, if we ever wanted to the Israelis. Second, though, so that we might need it in the event of a war in the Middle East. And we decided Israel was a safer place to keep the ammo. Well, guess who depleted a vast majority of that ammo and sent it to Ukraine? Well, now what? Are you going to restock it? What if you need it? Let's say a war does break out with Iran. Well, oops, don't have the ammo anymore. Now what? The issue, too, by tying Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, all of that together, they actually, in many cases, Krystal, they want the same stuff. So, for example, yes, Patriot missiles is a perfect one. Well, guess what we sent to Ukraine? And guess what Israel is going to want as well? Also, in terms of there's certain type of missiles and other things that we've been sending to Ukraine, which also has been directly drawn out of weapon stocks that we were supposed to send to Taiwan. And this, let's put all of them out of this, Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. we also don't have many of these stocks that take years to replace. Now we are all learning that the world, and specifically weapons, is zero sum. When you give something to someone else, you don't have it, and then also the people that you may want to give it to in the future may not have it. So in the immediate term, you're probably right that something will pass. But that $100 billion that they wanted, I think that's gone. And specifically just because we genuinely, if we are involved in this right now, we do not have the weapons to be able to send over there. We don't have the defense industrial base to replace them in a timely fashion. This is probably one of the more precarious moments for the United States in literally decades from a defense point of view, with 3 different places that all could flash and could draw us into a global world war all at the same time. Honestly, even more heightened than at some points during the Cold War, just even though it may not feel that way because that was nuclear. And this is, it starts smaller, but definitely could escalate. And I think that is why a limited amount of aid is very likely to pass, I do think, for Ukraine. But the days of their blank check, I do think, ended the day that Hamas went into Gaza.
Yeah.
Because of that reality.
I think you're right. Yeah. And also, I mean, the reality of like where the media attention is going to be, where the sympathies are now going to lie. I do have to say one thing, just to make one point about this strategy of tying all these pieces together. It's like, it shows you when the White House wants to get something done, they figure out a way to get it done.
Good point.
I would take the border security plus child tax credit deal. Like, where's that deal? I mean, this is a strategy that they use all the time to get things like Ukraine aid or Israel aid or whatever it is. They'll say, all right, here's a priority from the right. Here's a priority from the left. We're going to put them together, and then everybody will pass it, and that's the deal. Like, why can we never do that when it comes to good things for the American people? Child tax credit being a perfect example of something that supposedly there are some Republicans who are at least like open to, and which had a clear, like, massive impact on child poverty and was hugely beneficial and administered well and used in, good ways that helped the nation's kids. Like, why are those deals never on the table? It's endlessly frustrating to me. But just remember that next time there's this learned helplessness in DC of like, oh, well, gosh, we would love to, but there's just not support for it. No. When they want to get something done, they act very quickly and they get it done. So remember that next time you're hearing that nonsense from any of these politicians here.
All right, listen, on that one, you are 100% correct. It's astounding, isn't it, that Israel and Ukraine aid can spur all these people to action. And as actually happened during the Ukraine invasion, baby formula gets put to the side. We figured it out eventually. How many kids didn't have any baby formula? How many people were stressed out about that? I remember I was actually very attacked for this and got into quite arguments. Krystal, when I was like, they care more about Ukraine than they do about American baby. People are like, how can you say that? That's outrageous.
How can you not say that?
Actions speak louder than words. Say whatever you want. And look, we got to blame some of the voters too. As you were talking about, my neighbors are a great gauge. I'm like, all right, where are these people's heads at? Because they all work in the government, they work in the media.
Yeah.
All these people, they work in the Pentagon, whatever. As you said, now the Israel flags, they're starting to go up. Ukraine flags, the Ukraine bumper stickers, the one lady who's got parking for Ukrainians only. Now there's going to be an Israel flag right there. They only have a limited amount of attention. And it is, quite literally zero sum in this case, especially when we're talking about weapons and aid. And also, I think that if there's no country on earth but Israel that could have so surmounted Ukraine like this, because it has such heavy bipartisan support and lobbying power here in Washington than anybody else. Like, if you were to put yourself up against anyone, you would never want to put yourself up against Israel whenever it comes to U.S. attention and to U.S. funding and, just the overall U.S. military support.
Yeah.
Which, I have probably a conversation for another day. I did lay it out, though, earlier about how this could easily draw us into a bigger war with Iran, which would be a total nightmare.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.